Hello, hello. Trying to get this worked out. 1 second. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay. Share the screen. All right, put in a chat where you're coming in from. Let's see. I want to do. What happened to my feed? Here it is. Hopefully this is the right one. Yes, here we go. We are now at the right one, I believe. So guess what? I'm Lyric Armstrong, your real estate agent and advocate. It has been a very long time. I'm sorry. Life does its thing. Oh, you guys can't see me. Okay, sorry. Let me see if I can fix that. Trying to fix that. Let's see what happens. Let's see. There we go. All right. So you guys can see me now. So, we're almost ready. We are almost ready. So put in the chat, let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know, have you been watching the retrial? And how many of you who watched the first trial is now watching the retrial, the new trial? It is different, right? I didn't want to stream each day because I don't have the time to stream each day. And I didn't want us to get started with everyone and then drop off. But I have a free day today. Free day for a few hours today. So hopefully we'll get something interesting today in the trial. This has been a very interesting case. Now, I will say the last few days, or the first days of the trial, Brennick has been a much better prosecutor in presenting the case. It's flowed a little better. You can follow along a little better. The questions flow better. The way that he's brought up the witnesses have been chronological order. So the layout of the case is less confusing than it was the first time around with Lolly. So that is an improvement to the prosecution's case. I'm looking forward to having Jackson and the team come forth and give us a real rundown of what's going on and help us with cross-examination. One of the things that the prosecution has put in this time that wasn't in the first time is Karen Reed's interview clips, because she didn't interview until after the last trial. Not liking the interview clips. I'm not liking them. Tell me how you feel. All right, so we're here. We're going to thank Law and Crime. Thank you so much for posting. We're going to give them a thumbs up. Try what for free? I don't know what that is. But anyway, I'll put a thumbs up. You can subscribe and do all the wonderful things. We have gone from the only fan to the only light. So if you have light issues, close your eyes. Fan is going. We're going to flip through a couple of this real quick. Fan is going. Motion issues, close your eyes. Otherwise, here we are. In the Karen retrial, let's make sure we have volume. Oh, we don't have. Let's turn it up. Turn it up. Up, 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 up. Okay. All right. So let me know how you feel about this trial so far. Has the prosecution given you some clarity? Do you have some comfort in being able to understand their case better? Not do you agree with the case. I don't necessarily agree with the case, but you can tell me that too if you want to.
Right.
We're
You have
live.
joined the meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout the meeting.
Thank you.
The host would like you to unmute your microphone.
'Cause we're
You are
gonna-
unmuted.
Please proceed, closed session.
Wait, we're
Good
unmuted.
morning.
For the record, before the court is Cromwell versus Karen Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present, the jury is not present, the matter is on for trial.
Thank you. So good morning. I heard the council wanted to see me about something.
Yes, please.
All right. Why don't you come on over to sidebar?
Sorry about that. I'll keep things fast. So we're doing a sidebar now. Yeah, tell me what you think about what's going on. If you care or not. Does it make any more sense to you now than it did before? I don't think it's really a prosecutable case, especially with all the blunder of the witnesses and the investigators. I mean, they didn't treat it like a crime scene at any point. They didn't treat her supposed I hit him statements. Whether it was, so we're at the fan. Okay, so the courtroom is pretty much empty. This is the family of Mr. O'Keefe. At least I know this is the brother and the mom. I'm not sure about the people in the back row, but probably so. So, you know, our sympathies go out to them. This time, the mom testified very quickly. It was a very emotional time. That testimony was very emotional. And I probably will get more in
You are unmuted.
when we're doing jury watch. I think that's a better time for me.
Why don't council calm down?
Maybe I won't be in so much. Maybe so. Oh, they go away, they come back. This sidebar is for real. But I don't think there's a jury, right? Or is the jury in today? I thought the jury was off because they were going to go and visit the property. I thought that was today's. Okay. Here we go. But whatever it is, it's not on the record. Well, it's not for us to hear on the record. It's in the record. It's a sidebar. The court reporter takes it down.
Okay.
The transcript on the appeal and stuff.
You absolutely did not. Come on.
I've noticed, I don't know if they've noticed, but when they were outside and now here, I could hear them talking to one another. So hopefully they notice and they're not saying anything that no one else should be hearing. But it's interesting you can hear these two, which is Karen Reed and Yannetti, our defense counsel. Interesting. We're in trial and we're doing more spanning of the general space, because usually the trial is like right up on the witness, right up on the, oh, they're spanning into her, right up on the attorneys. And now we are counting Karen's boogers. Okay, I hate when they do that. Okay, they are bringing the jury in. They're bringing the jury in. Okay, the jury is coming in. Where are you coming in from? The jury is coming in. Where are you coming in from? Which are they going to bring him in to take him right back out? Yeah, because they're going to go. They're going to go to the locations, I guess, and we're going to get some testimony. Look at this. We're going to have some info. Is this the? No, it's not even voir dire because voir dire is on Monday. We're going to have a witness come in. All right. Well, let's. Scoochie. Let's move it up. Scooch.
Having anything to do before the Honorable.
All right.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Cannoli, the Justice of the Superior Court, holding in Dedham within and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
For the record, before the court is Cromwell versus Karen Reed, 22 CR 117. The parties are present. Our 18 jurors are present. The matter is on for trial.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good morning again, Council. Good morning again, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. When we leave you out there, we're very much aware that we're leaving you in another room waiting, but we were working this morning to help streamline things, and we were successful, so we do appreciate your patience. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday?
Yes.
Everyone nodded affirmatively or said yes. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did any of you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? No. Thank you. Everyone said no. All right, folks, as you know, this morning we are going on a view. And a view is simply, we're going to a place that you've heard about and that you will continue to hear about during the course of the trial. The purpose of the view.
So, real quick, tell me, if you were on the jury, would you appreciate her demeanor? She's very sweet to the jury. She's very, informative. I love to be informed. I don't like to be like sitting around trying to figure it out. So she's like, listen, I understand you're in another room. We didn't forget about you. We're just working. And then she goes through her questions to make sure that they're not tainted in any way. At least on the record, she's, getting it on the record. So that's great. They do not see her snapping at Jackson and the defense team when they are not in the room. And even when they do objections, she pretty much stays, even keel with her responses. I know we hear her huffing and puffing, and she probably, sounds like she's rolling her eyes or whatever. But most of the room is not hearing that, if any, because the room is not getting the not getting the microphone feed. That's why she stood up, got closer to them, projected her voice towards them, because the microphone is feeding into us. So just, even though it sounds extra loud and you're like, working your ears around, because of the microphones, they are very sensitive. They're picking up a lot this time around, especially, but it is not feeding to the courtroom. It's feeding to the public. And I think the DUI guy said the last time when he was in the courtroom and he was watching the testimony of Ali McCabe, I want to say, that he could not, front row seat, right behind Yannetti, where the podium is, he could not tell, or to the left of him, actually, not behind it, but to the left of him, he could not tell how much huffing and puffing she was doing, how she was looking agitated. But when you watch it through the feed, our perspective from what we're watching, because we have the cameras zooming in, we have the cameras in the microphones on heightened view and sound, we could see it as the outside public, but him as someone that was in the courtroom was not able to pick up on it. So the question is, can the jury pick up on those little things where, someone looks like they're hyperventilating internally because they're, I think that's what she was doing, something to that nature. And then she was, I saw her scrunching her face a little bit, making little slight movements of her mouth. And that was Ali. So the daughter of Jen McCabe. So I believe it's Ali McCabe. I don't know if she's going to be testifying this time around, but if you go back, you'll be able to see it. And then also you can go to GUI Guy's YouTube channel, and he does a replay of it from last trial and just see. When we look at it, we're like, oh my God, she's like hyperventilating. She's lying. She's this, she's that. But does the jury see it? If you can't see it in the courtroom, can the jury see it? Because it's a small courtroom.
Is to help you better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. So the view that we're going on is part of the case, and it means that the observations that you make there can be used and considered by you in your deliberations on this case in reaching a verdict. So we're going to, you've heard 34 Fairview Road in Canton. The lawyers and I will accompany you for the
Commonwealth will be accompanied by Attorney Brennan, and ADA Lally, ADA Schillinger, and for the defense, Attorney Yannetti and Attorney Little. The lawyers will have the opportunity, Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Brennan, have the opportunity to point out various things that they may want you to direct your attention to. Otherwise, there's no conversation between the lawyers and the jurors. So it's simply in a few minutes, you'll hear a little bit from each Mr. Brennan and Mr. Yannetti about what they want you to look at. And then when we get there, they'll direct you, look in this direction. They won't be able to testify to you, but they'll direct you on what they want you to look at. While you're in the view, you're not to take any notes, you're not to take any pictures, you're not to conduct any independent investigation at all during the view or any time during the trial. You're not to return to this scene or ask anybody to go back there for you. Today's your chance. You'll see photographs during the course of the trial, I bet, but today's your chance to really look at everything. So the best way to summarize a view is that your job is to simply stop and look. It's really no more complicated than that. So your responsibility is to see the place, observe it carefully, and to remember what you see. Now, during the trip to and from the view, and while at the view, you're not to discuss this case or anything about it with other jurors. We'll be accompanied by court officers who will direct you, and the court officers are there for all of us. So you'll be under their supervision until you're returned back here. So that's basically it. We'll be leaving in a few minutes, but first, before Madam Clerk swears the court officers in, Mr. Brennan, do you want to make a view opening?
May I?
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As Her Honor explained to you, we're going to go to 34 Fairview Road. We have some exhibits that are already in evidence. You haven't had a long time to look at them, study them. But essentially, we're going to go to 34 Fairview Road. I ask you to pay attention to the street, the front yard of the home. And you'll see to the left side of the front yard in the corner, there'll be a car. It's the Lexus that we've spoken about, the defendant's Lexus. And you'll also see a flagpole and a fire hydrant. And so I'd ask you to take a look from different vantage points. Take a look from that area where the flagpole is, from where the fire hydrant is. And you'll see on the street before the grass is a little berm, concrete that comes up a little bit. I'd ask you just to note that when you go there. One thing I'd suggest is April 25th, 2025, not January 22nd, 2022. So the weather will be very different. The temperature will be different.
Wait, prosecution, we're supposed to pay attention to the grass? I thought it was snowing. I think he's trying to say that there's a mound there, like it's like a little hill, but he's like, pay attention to the grass. You know, it's like,
The conditions will be different.
Wait.
We're going to go there probably at 10 o'clock. It won't be the same visibility. It won't be the same elements and the same weather. So keep that in mind when you're looking around. When you look at the Lexus, there's a couple things that actually you look at. There is some evidence already in photographs of the right rear tail light. When you look at that tail light, it will be different in the photograph than the evidence. It has been removed, so it will appear differently, and you'll later get testimony explaining that process. Also, I'd ask you to make a note on the Lexus about the height of the bumper. I'd ask you to make note of the height of the right rear tail light. And I'd also ask you to take note of, on the top of the hatchback, there is a project tree. I'd ask you to look at that as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Mr. Yannetti?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. As I told you at the start of the trial, my name is David Yannetti. I have an office in Boston and in Dedham. And on behalf of my co-counsel, we will be accompanying you on the view that you will take today. Although the view is not evidence, I suggest to you that you will find it to be helpful, important, even necessary as you later do your investigation of this case within the four walls of this courtroom. You've already received into evidence, some photos and videos
But there is no substitute for your own two eyes. As we all know, photos and videos sometimes can be misleading in terms of relative distances, depending upon the perspective from which the photo is taken. But your eyes are the best computer that you could bring to the view.
Good job.
When we get to 34 Fairview,
Trust your eyes.
we will be pointing out certain things that we'd like you to observe. The house, the second floor window to that house, the 3 front doors in the front of the house, the driveway, the street, the front lawn, and the flagpole. And we'll be asking you specifically to consider the distance between that second floor front window and the front lawn. The distance between the front doors to the house and that front lawn. The distance between the driveway to the front lawn. And we'll be asking you to take a good look at that Lexus, to stand next to it, to size it up, to take it in. You were all selected as jurors because the parties entrusted that you would do a proper investigation of this case within this courtroom. On behalf of Ms. Reed, we have every confidence that you will do a proper investigation. Thank you.
All right, jurors, I have to make something very clear. So the purpose of this view is to help you better to understand the evidence that you'll hear during the trial and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view you'll take is part of this case. The observations that you make while on the view may be used and considered by you in your deliberations in reaching a verdict. So at the end of the trial, when I explain to you what is evidence and what is not, I'll remind you that your observations on this view can be used by you in your deliberations. Also, while you're in the view, the same way you're not to take any notes or photographs, you're not to conduct any investigation on this case. You really are simply to stop and look, okay? Those are the instructions. We will see you in a few minutes. All right, thank you. Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk has to swear in the court officers.
If you could all raise your right hand, please. Do each of you solemnly swear that you will take the jury upon the premises in question and there suffer them to view the same or any property, place, or thing bearing upon the issue in the trial as the parties may think necessary, that you will not permit the parties to enter into a debate in the hearing of the jury, nor any person to speak to them unless it be the attorneys of record, then only to point out such places or things as they may deem expedient for the determination of the issues, that you'll keep the jury together until they shall return to court, unless the court shall otherwise order, so help you God. Thank you.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, please, jurors follow me.
All right. So very good. Very, very good. We had, let's talk a little bit. Let's see, how do we go? So we had a moment where everyone spoke to the jury just to let them know, get their bearings as to why do they have to leave the comfort of the courthouse to go see this house. Obviously, it's a fun little field trip. Yes, even the jurors are loving the field trip because they want to get out of the courtroom. So, but I loved Unetti and the prosecution. They both did a good job, like explaining what they want them to see. But I really love Unetti's like, trust yourself. You know, you are phenomenal. You can tell. You are smart. You know, you're kind. You know, all that wonderful, like, feel good accolades. Everyone likes to be told how great they are, right? Everyone likes to know that they are seen to be great. And Unetti made that apparent to them. Like, I'm trusting you. You're the best people we could get. You're awesome. We know that you're going to do a great job. Trust your own eyes. Look at the distance and perception. You know, believe in yourself, because what's going to happen is they're going to start putting up witnesses, especially if we get to Proctor. We got to get to Proctor. When we get to Proctor and, you know, McCabe, we're going to be listening to some very far-fetched accounts as to what is the possibility. The realm of possibilities are going to sound real crazy, that so many people left Fairview walked by the supposed, area where he was supposedly assaulted by a car, but yet his injuries don't speak to a car. The landscaping doesn't speak to his injuries. And then they didn't see him, right? They didn't see him around that time. So the defense's account for what happened is that he actually went inside. He had an altercation and he was brought outside. The altercation most likely resulted in his death. He was brought outside. He did not have hypothermia, so he didn't freeze to death. He was put to death by some other means. So with that being said, Yannetti's information, like, hey, just pay attention. Like, just trust yourself. You don't need to hear from us. You're the best. Like, we know, That was a cute little intro. Let's see if we can get back in now, because they go and they come back. We got the only fan, the fan and the light. I don't like that. I really wish they would zoom into the emblem, zoom into Massachusetts emblem that's usually behind the judge. I guess they can't get that angle good enough or something, but this fan thing and the light thing is just, ugh. What is this? Why are we okay? So we're outside and people are walking by. I hope they can't get the jury. They're not allowed to. So the jury must go out a different door because they're not allowed to put the jury on camera. Just wonder what this is. Okay, it's door movement. Okay. Oh, this is the camera guy. Okay, camera guy. They keep getting the camera guy. I was like, who are you taking pictures of, buddy? They're like, nobody. It's our worker. We're following directions. We promise. Okay, if you want to go to Law and Crime, you can see whatever that is. some postings, I guess. Some updates on today's events. But we have a short day today. That is true. It's a half day because they were out in the field. But we have testimony. We have somebody getting to the witness box. We're going to find out who is in the. Oh, now we got the window. The lonely window, the only fan, and the only light. We need sound.
Back in session, you may be seated.
Sorry. Back in session.
Who is your next witness?
Your Honor, the call will call Dr. Gary Fowler to the stand.
Thank you.
Okay, so jury is back. Yeah, I just say pull all this stuff down. Come on, line crime. With the X off the screen. You want to see faces? See. Let's see. You want to see faces?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury, spelling your last name for the court?
My name is Dr. Gary Fowler, F as in Frank, Aller.
And what is your occupation?
I am a physician pathologist.
And where do you work?
tests.
And why is blood testing ordered in the
Okay, so if I'm correct, this is going to be the guy that brings in her alcohol level blood test. All this intro, if that's the evidence he's getting ready to get to,
course of medical treatment at a hospital?
but you have to show that you're accredited.
When you're admitted to the hospital, usually you're sick, so the physician is usually a standard, ordering. Clinician.
Boring.
Now, with reference to alcohol, does the Good Samaritan Medical Center, do they also test alcohol within the blood?
Yes, we do.
And why would that assist?
We finally got to where we came, but he had to show that he is a
Doctor, I'm placing before you two sets of documents. Just ask you to review those generally and when you finish.
good God.
The second one is our alcohol policy, which pretty much details in detail what goes on behind the scenes for an alcohol blood test in our hospital.
This thing, I have him sped up to 1.25.
You want to call so you can introduce in the minutes the next two exhibits?
All right, thank you.
I think that's a good speed. Let me know.
Your Honor, for the record, it would be the patient preparation.
So he just identified what the evidence is. Now he's
And the ETOH policy would be the next.
the prosecution is getting it entered into evidence. Wait for evidence. Is that
taking
Lally?
somebody's blood for swab,
Sorry, I'm looking it up.
a swab that has no alcohol.
I forgot to
We call them
Lally.
a moist towelette. That's what we refer them to.
Lally me.
Also, in the emergency room, my supervisor pretty much removed probably 95% of all the alcohol swabs. So just in case if a phlebotomist forgets to not use an alcohol swab, they are hard to find. We need to keep a few there because we need to use alcohol wipes on certain tests like blood cultures and stuff like that. So
When were the alcohol swabs?
Wait, we have to have a moment. That is Lally. And he is asking clearer questions. He is asking clearer questions. I knew the voice was different, but I just was like, okay, that's not Brennan, but it's somebody. That is Lally. Adam Lally is not leading the case, but he is still on the prosecution team. He is introducing the medical examiner. His questions are clearer. They are still like less to the point kind of thing. Like we're doing a lot of foundation build, but the reality is he does need to have foundation to bring in the evidence. This is the way you bring in evidence. So those who are thinking about becoming a lawyer and you want to do trial, a part of bringing in the evidence is the witness has to be able to testify to that evidence. You can't just bring in evidence and say, hey, here's evidence. The witness has to be able to testify to it. The clips of Karen's statement is she's the defendant, so she's a party. So they're giving her public statements in evidence, and they don't need a witness to bring that in because it's publicly stated. They just have to present it to the court, get approval from the court to show the jury. But as far as other evidence, you have to have a witness to testify that this is truly the evidence that it should be, what the evidence is. And then the court will, accept it without objection unless the other party objects, and then you go through a whole battle about it. But Lally's doing a great job. He's getting it in. I haven't heard what, if anything, so he must have been, listening to the airways that the what, if anything, drives everyone crazy. I haven't heard him say it. I'm surprised. Lally is on the scene. Okay, Lally is
removed from the emergency department.
it was before my time. So certain tests like blood cultures and stuff like that. So
when were the alcohol swabs removed?
Professional who specializes in drawing blood.
I just gave him a compliment. This medical examiner already talked about phlebotomists.
So they're the ones who are trained, competent, and know what to do when they draw a patient's blood.
What kind of training do phlebotomists receive at Good Samaritan?
We try to hire phlebotomists who have been trained. It's just easier. Procedures and demonstrate competency.
Okay, so you need a job, you got a high school background, you go get trained to be a phlebotomist. If blood doesn't scare you.
Is there any sort of proficiency testing related to phlebotomists at Good Samaritan?
There's
Spell that, please. Lally's doing great. Clear questions.
I'm
No
showing you the other
anything.
series of documents again. You can just look at that and look up.
Good job, Lally. Wait, can you guys hear this sound?
You know, may I return to the documents?
Yes.
Is the sound not playing?
And doctor, what was the result of the testing for alcohol in the defendant's blood when it was taken shortly after 9 a.m. on January 29th?
93 milligrams per deciliter.
Okay. Nothing further on.
Okay. Ms. Little?
Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fowler.
Oh, good afternoon.
Had to fix the sound.
The Good Samaritan lab is a clinical lab, not a forensic lab. Is that right?
Correct.
And hospitals are not in the legal business of calculating an individual's blood alcohol concentration. Is that right?
I would say 99.9% of the time we are not in the legal business. We are testing alcohol for the diagnosis of alcohol intoxication. But occasionally a case may come, very rare, to a hospital and it ends up being a legal case. It's not common. I think uncommon.
And you'd agree that there are differences between screening tests that are conducted at hospitals and forensic tests that are conducted by law enforcement, right?
Yes.
The purpose of testing in a clinical setting is to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of a patient, right?
Correct.
And physicians need to analyze blood quickly. They need to get the results so they can see what's in a patient's system and then effectively and efficiently treat that patient, right?
Correct.
Whereas in a forensic setting, tests for blood alcohol concentration are designed to produce results that are reliable and credible for use in court, correct?
Correct.
You testified earlier today that your lab is accredited by CAP, which is the College of American Pathologists. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
But CAP is a clinical laboratory accreditation, not a forensic accreditation, right?
We don't have the forensic accreditation for Good Samaritan.
In fact, Good Samaritan has never been investigated or accredited by any forensic accreditation team to ensure that you perform all of your tests with the integrity necessary to support results in court, right?
We've never had the forensic accreditation, but we have very good quality lab results, which I could go into further.
But you've never been accredited by a forensic accreditation team, right?
Nope.
And the lab at Good Samaritan has never been accredited by the ANSI, which is the National Accreditation Board known as ANAB. Are you familiar with that organization?
No.
Are you aware that ANAB is the forensic accreditation body that in the United States that ensures that laboratories' procedures meet the minimum standards necessary to ensure results are reliable and credible for use in court?
Sustained.
What? Why?
Now, the most reliable method of forensic ethanol testing is called headspace gas.
That's an interesting objection. I guess relevance, or the fact that he said he doesn't know the accreditation, so he can't certify what they do. Maybe that's why the objection went through. But in our field, in legal field, you have a accreditation war. When you're going to school, if you're coming to be a lawyer or anything, you'll know this easily. You'll have maybe a state accreditation or a regional accreditation versus the ABA, which is the National Bar Accreditation, right? It's called the American Bar. So the American Bar is for the whole United States, and a lot of Fortune 100 firms want you to be ABA accredited. You want the school that you went to be ABA accredited. This is why I'm ABA accredited as a paralegal. The school I went to is ABA accredited. So it's an accreditation process. Every school goes through accreditation process. There's different boards that that help with that process. She is questioning his ability to speak to the evidence because he's not nationally accredited. One, I don't think he was nationally accredited in his own field. It didn't sound like it was national. It could have been, but then he's not nationally accredited for the forensic pathology, and that's what she's attacking, that he's not a forensic pathologist.
Now, the most reliable method of forensic ethanol testing is called headspace gas chromatography, or HSGC. Are you familiar with that process?
Yes.
And HSGC is the method that's used by forensic labs to test for blood alcohol content, right?
Correct.
And that's because forensic tests require the testing of whole blood for the presence of alcohol, right?
Correct.
Can you briefly, just for the jury, describe sort of the difference between a whole blood test and a serum test?
Sure. So whole blood, to put it simply, when you have your blood drawn, you see the fluid coming out all red. That's whole blood. We don't do anything to it. We don't spin it down. We don't centrifuge it. That is whole blood. That is the specimen of choice for forensic blood ethanol testing. Hospitals, on the other hand, our methodology, which is just as good as the forensic headspace gas chromatography, is based on looking at the serum or the plasma. So we don't, that's what when I explained that we need to centrifuge it, take the liquid portion off the top. So in the hospital, we test it on the serum or the plasma. Now, did you ask me the difference? You want me to go into the difference?
That's enough, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll ask some additional questions to kind of clarify. And in a forensic lab, they actually require the testing of whole blood, correct?
Correct.
And HSGC directly measures ethanol in the blood.
Correct.
And this method is designed to be accurate and reliable for forensic purposes for use in legal proceedings, correct?
Correct.
But the testing in this case was performed using the hospital's clinical chemistry machine instead of a forensically defensible method like HSGC, right?
Correct.
And that clinical chemistry machine performs what you just testified to, a serum test, right?
Serum or plasma?
Serum or plasma. And hospitals use serum or plasma testing because it's actually quicker and more efficient than HSGC, right?
Yes, it's less labor intensive. It's easy to automate, but at the same time, very, very good and very accurate.
But serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. It instead measures the presence of what's called NADH, right? Yes, I'll repeat that. That was my fault. Serum testing does not actually measure alcohol directly. Instead, it measures the presence of NADH. Is that right?
Almost.
Well, NADH is a byproduct of alcohol, right?
Correct. I can go into the testing how methodology that we use to explain it if you want me to.
Well, serum testing measures the presence of NADH, correct?
It measures the rate of change of NADH production, so it doesn't actually look at just NADH, and it measures the rate of production, and I can go into more detail on that. Alcohol testing in the lab is correct.
I'll ask you some.
It's interesting because this is cross-examination, so really his answers are meant to be yes, no. But he's like, it's not that simple, and he wants to explain so bad, but that's what redirect is for. And Ms. Little is like, I'll get into that. I just want you to answer this question.
Alcohol testing in the lab is
I need to explain.
correct.
I'll ask you some additional
Okay,
questions
sure.
about NADH, and we'll
Sure.
get there.
Yeah.
So you can do this now, but let the doctor answer his question fully next question, okay? And the following questions.
Doctor, the higher the NADH
What?
in a patient's system, the higher the serum test result, correct?
That is what redirect is for. She's asking him specifically, is this a part of this? He's supposed to say, not completely. It's a part of it, but it's not completely. No, there's more to it. So, okay, moving on. She can ask a different question, or she can ask him to explain, or she can wait for redirect to get the explanation. She's not responsible for listening to his, long-winded explanation training class. That is what the prosecution is responsible for, because that's direct examination. It's like, explain further, doctor. What did you mean when you said this? Sounds like you had more to say. Her job is yes, no, yes, no.
That may not be correct, no. It's the rate of change of NADH production
That may not be correct, no. That's what she needs to know.
based on our methodology. I can go into that. So our test system is a little bit different than the forensic testing system, but it's also very good and very accurate, and almost when we compare our methodology to the Headspace, we get the exact same results, and when we compare and with peer laboratory comparisons. But what we do is and I think the jury needs to know this. Maybe some of you might understand the chemistry behind it, but we do.
He's being defensive. He's getting defensive. He's like, our methodology is just as good. We get the same results. It's very conclusionary. This is not the question, but
understand the chemistry behind it. But we do. We take the patient sample, and it's based on. We add because when there's alcohol in the specimen. We add, actually, in the test system, alcohol dehydrogenase. It's the same enzyme that's in the patient's body. In addition, we add a surplus of NAD to it. NAD is similar to NADH. They get converted back and forth. So when we put it on our test system, it's alcohol dehydrogenase is in there. And what happens is when there's alcohol, it combines with NAD that we add to it. It creates NADH. And then in our machine, there's a spectrophotometer, which can monitor the rate of NADH production over baseline. And we use, there's something that measures, a photometer that measures the NADH production. It looks at light and this physics, and looks at 340 nanometers. And it's pretty accurate. It will monitor, it will tell you, it will tell the system how much NADH is produced, and that amount is directly proportional to the alcohol in the patient sample. So it's a very, very accurate test, but there are some limitations that I can go into.
So wait for another question.
Okay.
Next question, Ms. Little.
Yes, so serum testing can be subject to errors, right? And there are limitations.
There are some limitations that I can explain, just like Headspace gas chromatography may have some limitations too, but I can go into them.
Next question.
What are some of the limitations of the serum testing?
Okay. So the serum test, as with many tests in the laboratory, different things can interfere with our laboratory tests. And the three most common ones, which are unlikely to affect ethanol testing, is we abbreviated HIL. We want to look at those three things. One is hemolysis, which is H, and the other one is I, icterus, which is high bilirubin, And the third is L for lipids. High lipids will interfere with alcohol testing or with any testing based on that same methodology. Our machine, the Rose-Kobash machine, and all the machines out in the market today are very sophisticated. If we have elevated levels of any H or I or L, it will flag it and raise the potential for a problem. The next thing on the list is that our alcohol testing is not absolutely specific for ethanol. There are two possible other alcohols that can cross-react. One is propanol and butanol. But then it goes clinical history. Did the patient ingest those two alcohols? And third is there's some unusual hematologic malignancies like Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia that can interfere. So it's always have to correlate with the clinical situation. The next one, sometimes there can be patients who make endogenous, make their own alcohol. So very rarely, some patients may truly have a positive result. That could be from our test or Headspace. They make their own, so we have to rule that out. It's a rare condition. And the next one is one that's in the literature, which is LDH and lactic acid. If a patient has a markedly elevated LDH or lactic acid, one is an enzyme, and the other one is an acid, that can cause false positives. Now,
Oh my
Let me
God.
stop you there, Doctor.
Friday.
Those were the four that you identified, the four limitations: the lactic acid, the hematology.
Yeah, exactly. What did he say? See, this is the problem with wanting to explain every answer. It becomes like checkout time because you were wah, 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 wah. Like, it's Friday, doctor. We just went on a field trip. We got to see how beautiful it is outside. Like, if you're the jury, you just came back from looking at the house, you actually want to hear more about the house. We're talking about blood and how to, test it. It's important, but this sequence is probably not the best sequence because I'm in the jury box and I'm gone to sleep now. The house is beautiful. The driveway's not that far away from where he was. The front door's not that far away from where he was. And nobody saw him down there, so he wasn't there. Like, that's in my mind. And now we're talking about blood platelets and NHDH and da-da-da-da-da-da. Come with it.
If I could
Go ahead and ask your next question.
If I could ask you a few more questions about LDH and lactic acid.
Doctor.
Sure.
You're aware, Dr. Fowler, of the medical literature establishing that the presence of LDH and lactic acid can lead to falsely elevated serum readings, correct?
Correct.
Leave it to
And that's because lactic acid or LDH actually forms NADH.
Lactic acid, I'll have to go into a little bit of chemistry. Lactic acid and LDH, lactate dehydrogenase, they both act on each other. And LDH and lactic acid needs NAD plus to break it down. So in theory, when you're testing a serum, a plasma for blood alcohol, if there's extra LDH or high levels of LDH, high levels of lactic acid, you add it to the test system, and then Roche throws in, or Siemens throws in the NAD, it will form NADH. That was first documented, I think, back in the older versions of these ethanol testings back in the 1990s when they stumbled on, they were looking for biomarkers or reasons in kids with SIDS, little babies, and they found that two of these babies had a positive alcohol.
Now we're talking about baby.
Doctor, if I could just ask the next question, if that's okay.
Sorry.
So in other words,
You know what, though, Ms. Little? His off-topic over-explanation tactic is kind of boring the people. So they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. He said something about blood. Like that. Now, unless you are a science person who really is scientific and wants to hear all this, a good majority of us are like, okay, blood is blood, and you tested it. Okay. And the over explanation is kind of putting everyone to sleep. So it might be good to just let them ramble.
NADH, studies have found, can actually be formed by certain biomechanical processes
Oh.
other than the presence of alcohol, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that the National Institute of Health has found that liver diseases, kidney diseases, muscle injury, trauma, and even anemia are some of the health conditions that can lead to a rise in serum LDH levels?
Wow.
Yes.
Are you aware that Ms. Reed was severely anemic in January of 2022?
Sustained.
It's not in evidence.
Are you aware that the medical literature has also found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls.
Good serve, though.
I'm going to allow that.
I haven't read anything specifically related to the NADH level, but but I want to go back to the point where our laboratory, our testing is not based. It's not
question-
Let him finish his answer.
It's not.
No, Your Honor. His question needs to answer. I mean, his question. His answer needs to relate to the question, not go back. Going back is Redirect's job, not her job, Your Honor. That's not her job. She is going against him. This is not her witness, right? She's not on direct. She's on cross-examination. He needs to answer the question, yes, no. He's unfamiliar with what she's talking about, which is her point. The very thing that forensics examination wants you to test for, he's unfamiliar with all of the background for it. He knows the generalized information of it. That's her point. But her point is getting lost because he's going on these long lectures about whatever. No, Judge. No, I don't agree with that. And she knows more than me. I'm not the expert. So let's not act like I know what I'm talking about. It's just my opinion on my experience. I'm not a judge, so I don't know. I'm not at her level, but I will say she's a human being and she too makes mistakes. And I think this is a mistake because that is not Little's position. She's not there to clean up his answer or to get him to pontificate. That's not her position. Her position is yes, no. Those are the answers. Yes, no, I don't know. That's not what I'm familiar with. I am familiar with XYZ, but not long-winded replies.
It's the rate of change of NADH. So if somebody has NADH on board, I believe it's not going to affect the results.
I believe. Do you know?
And it basically,
I believe.
You know,
I believe.
back to the anemia. I haven't read or heard of that.
That was stricken. That was not allowed.
Thank you.
It all goes back to the lactic acid and the LDH. The NADH doesn't matter. So looking at multiple sclerosis patients, they can have elevated LDH and lactic acid, but it's not to the extent that it can interfere with the alcohol levels. There was a study maybe 7-10 years ago.
Your Honor, there's no question pending.
You asked him about a study, if he was aware of the studies.
I asked, and that's a yes or no question. And he's
All right, Dr. We're going to hold that there for you and ask the next question.
Good job, Miss Little. Good job. Good job, Miss Little. Your Honor, it's a yes or no. I asked, is he familiar with XYZ? Yes, no. That's the response. Good job, Ms. Little.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center of Healthy Brain Aging by the University of New South Wales? Which,
Can you do that again and slow down, please?
sure.
Oh.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2000?
I have him at 125. She wants him to slow down beyond. How slow does she want her to go to say this? Let's see. Let's hear it.
2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Levels Through Disease Course in Multiple.
Kill me now! Oh, this poor jury. This poor jury. Kill me now. That is as slow as she has to go because she was going too fast when she said, let's see how she said it the first time because I had her sped up.
Sponsored by the Center of Healthy Brain Aging by the University of New South Wales. And he's
All right, Dr. We're going to hold that there for you and ask the next question.
Normal speed.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center of Healthy Brain Aging?
She has to go slower than that. That was her normal speed. Maybe it's for the court reporter. If it's for the court reporter, I give grace. But who the heck has
the University of New South Wales?
She's slow as
Which
heck. Very slow.
Do that again and slow down, please.
Gotta
Sure.
be court reporter. Gotta be for the court.
Doctor, have you reviewed the August 21st, 2013 peer-reviewed article entitled Serum NAD Levels Through Disease Course in Multiple Sclerosis, which was sponsored by the Center for Healthy Brain Aging by the School of Psychiatry at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, which specifically found that patients suffering from multiple sclerosis have a twofold increase in NADH levels as compared to controls.
Objection.
What? Why?
I'll strike the part of what the article held. Is he aware of the article?
No, I'm not, to be honest, no.
But okay. Okay. Oh, because just getting that into evidence.
Dr. Fowler, did you consider Ms. Reed's anemia and multiple sclerosis condition when you conducted the alcohol test?
Guess what? I think this must be Lally objecting because that's his witness. Guess what, Lally? The jury already heard it, and we know he doesn't know anything about it. Whatever it is, we don't know, and he doesn't know. So he's looking less and less like an expert.
On January 29th,
I wouldn't
2022.
object to that.
No, we don't. No.
And again, serum tests like the ones conducted in this case don't test for ethanol. They only test for NADH, right?
We test for the rate of change of NADH production.
And Dr. You did a number of other tests on Ms. Reed on January 29th, 2022. You tested for additional drugs, not just alcohol, correct?
Correct.
And all of those results were negative.
Correct.
Oh, she wasn't on her
Thank you.
medicine?
No further questions.
Okay.
Doesn't she take medicine? That's a good question. Because if she takes medicine and you didn't get any medicine in her system, what's up with that?
Doctor, are you aware, I know your lab at Good Samaritan did not do this process, but are you aware through your training and experience of any sort of mathematical conversion that can be done from a serum reading in milligram per deciliter to a blood alcohol concentration of whole blood?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it. The door was open.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I am aware. Yep.
And please describe what you're aware of with reference to that.
I guess the door is open because
Well,
she
with
asked about
blood,
outside.
blood alcohol concentrates goes to, when it's in your blood, it goes more to the watery components of your blood. So when I described the process earlier, whole blood is before we spin it. And when we test the plasma,
Did I speak
which is
him up?
specifically testing the watery component. Now, people have done studies like how much percentage of water is a serum versus whole blood. Basically, to put it simple, there's a higher percentage of water in the serum versus whole blood. So a hospital result will always be a little bit higher than a test on whole blood. It can be, I think the ratio, the conversion factor is anywhere from 1.1 to 1.18. It's always could be 18% or 11% higher in serum versus whole blood. But we don't do it. That's what I read. I will defer that to the experts.
Now, doctor, you were referencing in your cross-examination about a study that you were aware of about 10 years ago or so regarding MS and alcohol testing. Is that correct?
It was more on MS, looking at the results of lactic acid and LDH to see how high the levels of lactic acid can go in a group of multiple sclerosis patients. When reviewing that.
So wait, doctor. So not on alcohol levels with MS patients. This goes back to being irrelevant.
We found that the range went from some normal range, 16% of the multiple sclerosis patients had normal lactic acids, but the remainder had elevated levels. But those levels were not anywhere near the required levels to produce a false positive. Our package inserts and for the Roche testing system, the Roche has it's an FDA-approved test, and they have to do in-depth, detailed testing before they allow any hospital to do a test. And they have listed levels of lactic acid beyond which the test would not be reliable. But the results, based on this study of 600 multiple sclerosis patients, 2 big centers in Italy and 1 in the Netherlands, show that the highest level of lactic acid in the MS patients did not achieve, didn't get close. Usually patients with MS that are asymptomatic can have normal or low normal levels, or slightly elevated. It was the ones that had more symptoms that had elevated levels up to, I think the highest was 6.5 millimoles per deciliter, which is not high enough to interfere with our result.
Now, with respect to the lab at Good Samaritan Medical Center, the interference that you were speaking about earlier on cross-examination, what would happen if any of those types of interference were to occur during the course of the testing?
What interference?
No, I'll allow it.
What interference?
The 3 main ones, which I detailed earlier, is the hemolysis, icterus, and lipemia. Machines are sophisticated. It will detect it and say, it will flag it and say, please do not result it, or we'll have a disclaimer saying, interpret this result with caution. The results may not be accurate. It hardly ever happens with alcohol testing. But if it did, we would get a result like that, and we probably wouldn't report it.
And from your review of the defendant's medical record, specifically her testing from January 29th, did you notice any interference or any reports like that in her record?
No.
Oh,
Now,
Jackson,
the testing
real
that you're
close
doing
to
at Good Samaritan is in relation to patients such as that might have cancer or heart disease or something like that, correct?
Correct.
Now, you were talking or started to speak on cross-examination about the good quality lab results that you have from your lab, and you wanted to go into that further. Could you please expound upon that for the jury now?
We have you mentioned proficiency testing before. So all hospital laboratories accredited by the CAP or have to participate in proficiency testing. What that means is that every 3 times a year, and they give us 5 unknown samples. And we have to test it, report it back to CAP, which also reports back to the government. And we have to basically get the correct answers. And with alcohol testing, it's probably one of the best tests in the laboratory. Always have right on the money results. But at the same time, we're also able to look at results of all the other labs that participated in this proficiency testing. So we can look at different methods. We can look at labs that have the same method as us to see how we're doing. And usually with this proficiency testing, we have 3,000 labs across the nation that have the same methodology as us, so we can compare to them. And also, interestingly, we can see.
Okay, sorry to interrupt because he's boring. I want to kind of liven it up. But anyway, I think he's kind of losing this sight of the fact that it's not relative. Does he think that the testing is wonderful? We know you think your testing is wonderful. It's relative to, has any outside body said that this particular method of testing is the best way to test? And what was that body? And the cross-examination is penetrating the fact that the body who has certified you and approved you is not relative to forensics, and that there is a different process for forensics. So if there's a different process, whatever it is, and that forensic does not certify you and it's a whole different thing, it makes it seem like your testing methods are not appropriate for a forensic pathology test. Does it mean that that's true? Because it could very well be, good on both sides and good enough, and that could be the case. But we want to know from a third party that it's good enough. And he's telling us, like, we have great testing methods. Our testing methods are great. We know you approve your testing method because you're testing it, right? This is a method you're going to approve. Does an outside body approve it is more or less our question.
The labs that are using Headspace gas chromatography. And out of interest, we can see, how do we compare? And we have exactly the same results on these proficiency testings. We also look at some statistics as well, not going into them, but we can look at some stats like standard deviations and SDs. And actually, the hospitals with enzymatic testing have slightly better stats with that compared to Headspace. Pretty close, but a little bit better.
And doctor, from your review of the defendant's medical records and the blood testing in this case, was that done in conformity with the policies and protocols at Good Samaritan?
We have policies in place to be followed, and there's no reason not to think that somebody didn't follow policy.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Ms. Little?
No questions.
All right, doctor, you are all set, sir.
Thank you. Do you have another witness, Mr. Brennan?
I do.
Okay.
Commonwealth calls Jason Becker.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give to the court and the jury in the matter now pending shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Good afternoon, sir. All right, good.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Jason Becker.
How old are you?
I am 36 years old.
Do you live in the area?
I do. I live in Canton.
Tell us a little bit about your education.
My education, high school and college UMass. And I went to EMT school a little over 10 years ago and paramedic school.
Tell me a little bit about EMT school. How old were you when you started EMT school?
When I started EMT school, roughly 21 years old.
Why did you decide to go to EMT school?
I wanted to save some lives.
Tell us a little bit about EMT school. What did it require?
EMT school is a couple months of classroom stuff, and then you do some ride time on the ambulance. Paramedic school is a little different. It's a little extended. 2 years worth of training. You're doing hospital, ER time, and ambulance time also.
How long did you serve as an EMT before you went to paramedic school?
I served as I worked
Why is everyone talking so slowly?
as an EMT for approximately 5 years.
Can you estimate how many dozens or hundreds of calls you were on during that time?
Hundreds.
Why did you decide then to go get paramedic training?
I wanted to be on the fire department, and it was a
Requirement?
prerequisite.
Did you complete paramedic school successfully?
I did.
Were you still working as an EMT at the time?
I was.
And inevitably, did you seek to have a different job? Did you try to be a firefighter?
I wanted to be a firefighter, correct.
Were you successful in doing that?
I was.
Tell us a little bit about that, sir.
On the Canton Fire Department. So I got on the Canton Fire Department, and then they sent you to the fire academy, where you train to be a firefighter.
So you had EMT training, paramedic training, and then firefighter training.
That's correct.
On the Canton Police Department, did you serve dual roles as a paramedic and as a firefighter?
Fire department?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Firefighter and as a paramedic.
You served as a firefighter and a paramedic.
Correct.
In the Canton Fire Department, does it have more than one station?
There is. There's two.
Is there one station that's larger or smaller than the other?
Station 1 is the headquarters, which is larger.
Have you ever spent time in Station 1 as a firefighter or a paramedic?
I have. We rotate to both stations.
I want you to take us back to January 29th, 2022. Were you working that evening?
I was.
What station were you assigned to?
Canton Station 2.
Canton Fire Station 2?
Correct.
And that's the smaller of the two stations?
It is.
Were you working with anybody at Fire Station 2 that night?
My ambulance partner at the time was firefighter Dan Whitley.
Was there anybody else who was working at Fire Station 2 in addition to you and Dan Whitley?
Correct. There was an engine company with 3 guys on it.
3 people were assigned to the
engine. Correct.
Were you and Dan Whitley assigned as partners for the day, the week?
Correct. Yes, we were.
Which was it, the day or the week, sir?
The week.
So for the entire week, you're partners with a person, and does that rotate on other assignments?
It does. It rotates.
So on this particular week, you were assigned as partners with Dan Whitley?
I was.
What were your roles between the two of you?
Well, at the time, he was my preceptor. I was a new paramedic at the time. So I was more or less the lead tech on all the calls as part of my training. And Dan's been a paramedic for a long time. So he was there to teach me.
So would Dan Whitley be the lead on the call and he would help you?
I would be the lead.
You'd be the lead.
Correct.
Did you get a call that early morning hours of January 29, 2022?
We did.
What was the call assigned for?
It was a call for Section 12 psych eval.
Very briefly, can you tell us what a Section 12 is?
Sure. It's a transportation order filled out by police, doctor, basically for us on the ambulance that we have to take the patient, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, because they're a threat to themselves or someone else.
When you received the call for Section 12, were you aware that there were other calls that Fire Station 1 had responded to that morning?
We were aware. You can hear the calls going out each station.
Were you or Dan Whitley any part of that earlier call that Fire Station 1 responded to before you got the call for the Section 12?
We were not.
So your efforts were after?
We were after, correct.
After you got the call to respond to a Section 12, did you head towards Fairview Road?
We did.
Tell us a little bit about the trip to Fairview Road.
It was a little extended because of the weather conditions at the time. Snowing heavily, windy, low visibility.
Okay. How long did it take to get from Fire Station 2 to Fairview Road?
Approximately 8 to 10 minutes.
Who drove?
Firefighter Whitley.
Now, on the way to Fairview Road, do you sit in the front of the ambulance?
We do.
Take us to when you arrived to Fairview Road. What do you see?
You see a bunch of police lights. Canton Engine 3 was already on scene, so we parked behind them.
Did you have it, without talking about what you spoke about, did you have a chance to speak to anybody at the scene?
We briefly spoke to the Canton police, and they briefed us and sent us to where the defendant was at the time.
Why do you have a conversation with other first responders at the scene before you do anything?
They're making sure the scene is safe to begin with, and they're on scene first, so they have a little more info than what our dispatch would have.
After you had that debriefing with colleagues, were you directed to approach any certain person?
I was.
Where did you go?
I went to the defendant who was sitting in a black SUV type car.
Were there other persons inside the car with the defendant?
From my understanding, there was one person in the driver's seat.
And what seat was the defendant in?
She was in the front passenger seat.
Did you have a chance to speak to her?
I did.
And the person you spoke to who was in the passenger seat of that car, do you see that person in court today?
I do.
Could you point out and describe an article of clothing, please?
Miss Reed right there, she's in blue.
Blue.
Navy blue.
How long was your conversation with the defendant while she was still seated inside the vehicle?
Approximately 5.
Wait a minute. Does she look like she's wearing blue? That looks like an all black to me. Is that blue? Wait a minute. I mean, my eyes are bad too, but that looks like all black. So that's blue. That's navy blue.
5 to 8 minutes.
You must.
At some point, did you and the defendant move to another location?
We did.
Where did you go?
So we went back in the ambulance.
After having a conversation with her, was she cooperative going back to the ambulance with you?
She was.
And did you ask her to be seated in the ambulance?
I did.
Was she cooperative with that as well?
She was.
After she was seated in the ambulance, did you close the doors and get in?
We did.
When you say we, who was with you?
Me and firefighter Whitley.
So you and firefighter Whitley were in the back of the ambulance with Miss Reed. Who was going to drive the ambulance?
Firefighter Sam Park.
Where did he come from?
He was on the fire engine that was already on scene.
I want to ask you questions now about what you did in the back of the ambulance and some of the conversations that you had. Tell us what your role is once you have a patient in the back of the ambulance. What do you do next?
I mean, each patient's different. Depends on what the call is for. In this specific situation, it was more a psych eval, because that's what we're called for. Initial triage questions: is the patient cooperative, uncooperative, combative? I asked her name, her mental status, where she was. I asked if she was suicidal, and if she was, did she have a plan? Did she want to hurt anyone else? Those are kind of initial triage questions that I would ask.
Why do you ask those questions?
Just to get a kind of a judgment on the patient, reading the patient.
What's your role at that point? Are you an investigator?
I'm not.
Are you in any way law enforcement?
I'm not.
So what's your focus when you're speaking to a patient?
It's basically hearing them speak, hearing their story. In this specific situation, we didn't know circumstances. We just knew that Miss Reed had found her husband, which she was gone dead on the side of the road. So it was a traumatic call.
So when you were there, you knew nothing about what had happened before you got there?
We did not.
And your role had nothing to do with any of that investigation?
We did not.
You were solely focused on caring for the patient?
Correct.
Did you have any other role other than caring for the patient?
Just making sure she got to the hospital safely. She didn't hurt herself.
During those conversations, are you and firefighter Whitley doing the same thing or different things?
Again, it depends on the call. I was lead tech, so I'm the one documented, giving a report to the nurses, the staff. So I was more kind of getting that information, my initial triage questions, and then just kind of sat and supported Miss Reed. And
were you writing down information, technical information about status and health on a report?
I was, yes.
While you were doing that, was your colleague speaking to Miss Reed?
He was.
Did you have a chance at times to hear what they were speaking about?
Yeah, and no.
At other times, did you speak directly to Miss Reed?
I have.
Can you describe her demeanor or temperament?
Initially, she was agitated because she didn't feel like she needed to go to the hospital. She said the statement she made, she didn't mean. She just kind of said it just because of the events that she went through. So she, but then there'd be periods of which she'd be calm, and it would fluctuate. She would have like pressured speech, repetitive, but all in all, she was cooperative.
At some point, did you have a chance to speak to her directly about her mood?
About her mood?
About her mood.
I don't know if I understand the question.
Okay. Did she say anything to you about her last interaction with what she referred to as her husband?
Sustained.
Did she make any statements to you when you were giving her treatment or speaking to her about her husband?
I'll allow that.
So one of the reasons why she was saying suicidal stuff is because the last conversation she had with her husband at the time was an argument. I didn't feel like it was my role to really find out the details on what was said. That's what she said to me.
But the last thing she said to him was an argument?
Yep.
Sustained.
Did she tell you what the argument was about?
She did not.
Inevitably, did you get a chance to bring her to the hospital?
We did.
Did you stay in the back of the ambulance with her?
I did.
Did you continue to have conversations with her?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear conversations or parts of conversations she was having with your colleague?
I had parts.
When you get to the hospital, what happens next?
So we brought,
I guess I'm confused on how the objection is not being upheld, because if he's treating her like a patient and she hasn't consented to him giving over her information, how is it that he gets to testify to what she supposedly said during his intake of her as a patient? I'm confused on that factor. So if you know, let me know. I guess that's some type of exception, but he's not investigating her. They've already gone through that. He's only treating her, so she is a patient. So you would think she would have HIPAA rights, and so we'll see. I guess because it's not her actual medical condition, but they're going to get into
Ms. Reed into the hospital, registered her, bring it to the psychiatric section. Is it?
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Question.
Jackson?
Jackson, come on in. I like this camera angle. I like that we see everything. Now we don't see Jackson. Oh, there he is. Okay. It's a little better than last time. Camera angle.
I have just one, Your Honor.
Yes. All right, Jackson, make us proud.
Good afternoon, Firefighter Becker.
Good afternoon.
When you first arrived at the scene, there was at least two Canton police officers there, still.
Correct.
Do you remember their names?
Officer Saraf and Officer Mulvaney.
Okay. Their cruiser was there. You said that an engine was still there?
Correct.
And was there another ambulance there, or the other ambulance had already left the scene? They cleared?
They had already transported to the hospital.
And remind me, you were in ambulance two?
I was ambulance 2.
Got it. You parked behind the SUV where you ultimately made contact with Miss Reed, correct?
I think it was more in front of the SUV because the way the SUV was parked.
Got it. Got out of the ambulance, ultimately made contact with Miss Reed through the passenger door?
Correct.
Had a short conversation with her there?
I did.
You said it was maybe 5 to 8 minutes?
More like 5 minutes because of the weather conditions.
Okay, nothing of great consequence. I'm guessing just an initial, I think you called it sort of a triage assessment?
Well, it's more of just introducing myself and asking her how she was doing.
Got it. And then there was one other person in the cab of the vehicle as well?
There was.
Female, male?
Female.
So there are 2 females, one Miss Reed, one another female. Did you see any other civilian females out there?
I didn't see.
Okay, so at least where you were, the contact that you had with Miss Reed and this other female, there was just 2 of them, not a third one.
From what I saw, correct.
Did you get the other female's name?
Not at the time, I did not.
Okay. By the way, have you since gotten her name?
Based on a conversation, Firefighter Whitley and Miss Reed had back in the ambulance.
Got it. Okay. And who was that other person?
Miss Carrie Roberts.
Okay. When you first observed Miss Reed, did you note whether or not there was anything unusual about her physical appearance, meaning anything on her?
She did, yes.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
She had some blood around her mouth, her neck area.
At that point, were you concerned about, obviously you're concerned mainly about her safety and getting her safely to the hospital, correct?
That's correct.
Were you worried that might be her blood?
She had said that she had given CPR to her husband.
Okay, you jumped a question ahead. I was going to say, did she tell you that it was in fact not her blood?
She did, so that kind of, in a way, ruled it out. Okay. No injury for me.
And you didn't notice anything about her that looked like she was physically injured or physically in harm?
I did not.
Okay. She indicated that she had given CPR, mouth-to-mouth, attempts at mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
She did.
And that would account for the blood on her face and in her hair and on her neck?
That's what she told me.
Okay. And based on your observations of her, you didn't have any reason to quarrel with that?
Correct.
Okay. You indicated that her tone was somewhat rapid and repetitive. Is that right?
It fluctuated. So at times it was, yes.
Did it appear to you at that time that she had gone through a pretty significant trauma, as best you were trained at the time? Objection.
A little bit more of a foundation. I'll give it to you.
Sure. Have you ever, in your course of training, seen individuals who have gone through some sort of a traumatic event?
Frequently.
Frequently.
Everyone's different, though.
Understood. Well, obviously, everybody's got their own personalities and the way of dealing with those things, right?
Sure.
Have you been able to, through your training, assess whether, at least in your belief, your observations, if someone has gone through a relatively traumatic event, as opposed to just someone whistling down the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay. Did it appear at that time when you're interacting with Ms. Reed that she was showing the signs consistent of having gone through a trauma?
At the time, yes.
Okay. So hence the rapid speech, the repetitive speech, things of that nature?
Correct, for her, for the defendant. Some people don't have repetitive
Understood. I'm
speech.
just talking about your observations of her at that time.
Yes, sir.
Her demeanor was consistent with having gone through a significant trauma.
For the situation, sure, yes.
Okay. You said that she went from calmness to agitation. The agitation you accounted for being, I don't necessarily want to go to the hospital. I don't want to be sectioned, correct?
She felt like she didn't need to. It wasn't, she wasn't going to act on her comments about wanting to harm herself.
You called it, I think in a report, it's SI, suicidal ideation.
Correct.
That's obviously a great concern to you and your partners when you're assessing a patient, correct?
That's right.
You don't want to leave someone on their own if they're going to self-harm, correct?
That's correct.
You pretty quickly assessed, I'm guessing, Firefighter Becker, that she was not, in fact, in the position to self-harm. That I think you said that the statements that she originally made, if John dies, I don't want to live, were not necessarily at the level of actual suicidal ideation. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I believed her because of the information we got and what she went through.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand your answer.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Of course. It's probably my fault. At the time that you assessed her, even though she had made some comments about if John doesn't live, I don't want to live either, you did not elevate that to the level of her being suicidal at that moment.
So I couldn't rule it out, but
Okay.
I didn't think it was a huge threat at the time.
Understood. That's what I was trying to get at.
Couldn't rule it out, so that's why we had to take her to the hospital.
Understood. I mean, you had a Section 12. You had to take her irrespective of what you ruled in or out, right?
Right.
Okay. Firefighter Whitley was with you in the back of the ambulance the entire time you were with Miss Reed, correct?
Not the entire time. He was before we started transporting. He was kind of in and out, trying to find more of, talking to the police officers, find more of a story of, what happened, why we're taking the defendant on a Section 12.
Once you and Miss Reed were in the back of the ambulance, Firefighter Whitley then joined you in the back of the ambulance?
He did.
How much time lapsed?
It was a couple minutes at the most.
Okay, so it wasn't a lengthy amount of time.
It wasn't lengthy.
And he was with you during the transport, along with Miss Reed, for the whole transport back to Good Sam.
Yes.
And you said on direct examination, I think your phrase was, all in all, she was cooperative with us.
For the majority of the transport, yes.
Okay. Never became combative, never got physical, nothing like that?
No.
Okay. She did refer to Mr. O'Keefe as her husband or her spouse.
That's correct.
You're aware of HIPAA rules, obviously. You're in the medical field, correct?
Correct.
You're aware at the time that HIPAA rules would demand or dictate that unless you're a spouse or a parent or a child, there are certain rules against getting or providing information to someone who isn't one of those close family members, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You previously indicated on direct examination that, I think your words were, that Ms. Reed indicated that her last conversation she had with her husband was an argument, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified about that statement in other particulars, right? Other hearings.
I have.
You're paraphrasing. You didn't write down what she said about her previous interactions with Mr. O'Keefe, and you didn't record those on a tape recorder, correct?
I wrote down in my report that she said she had an argument.
Right. You didn't write it down at the time. That was a bad question on my part. You weren't taking notes as she was speaking.
Yeah, could have been. I mean, it's kind of for every call, we jot down notes on a notepad, just so, when we give the staff a report, we can read off it.
Do you have those notes?
I don't.
Okay. Do you think you took notes or no?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I could have been typing them on the computer. That's what we typed the report on at the time.
Do you have an independent recollection of taking notes, either handwritten or on a computer, as you sit here right now?
I couldn't tell you if I did one or the other. Sometimes I write on the computer, sometimes I don't.
Or you might not have written anything down, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in any event, you weren't taking down, even if you were taking notes, you weren't taking down verbatim quotes of what she was saying. You were paraphrasing the information that was coming to you, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You had previously said or testified that the last time, let me rephrase that just a little bit. You previously indicated in recounting what it was that Miss Reed actually said to you was something along the lines of she was upset because her last words to him were, because of her last words to him being in anger. I object.
I'm going to allow the question.
Is that correct?
Well, I probably phrased it a little wrongly, the last words. It was the last conversation.
Okay, that wasn't my question. My question is a simple one. In a previous hearing, did you use the phrase her last words to him?
Yes, I did. I did.
And that was at a hearing where you're under oath, just like you are now, correct?
Correct.
That was a little closer in time than we are now, maybe a year ago, correct?
Correct.
Actually, my mistake. It was about 2.5 years ago. It was a grand jury, correct?
Grand jury, yes.
Okay. And the phrase that you used was, and I want to concentrate on that for just a quick second, Firefighter Becker.
Sure.
the phrase that you used at that time was that she said, quote, like her last words to him. She was upset about her, quote, last words to him. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, can I see counsel at sidebar, please?
May I continue, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. When you were recounting the conversation that Ms. Reed indicated that she was upset about, you also indicated, in addition to using the phrase her last words to him, you also said that it was earlier in the night, correct? They had an argument earlier in the night.
I don't recall.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, take a look at the top paragraph, very, very small print. Let me know when you've refreshed your recollection.
Yes.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. When you wrote your report, you indicated that when she was describing the argument that you testified to on direct, it was about an argument that was, quote, earlier in the night.
Earlier in the night, correct?
Okay. And then you recounted that statement, that same statement in the grand jury later on as at least including, quote, her last words. Is that right?
Her last words.
You were talking about an argument that they had, and then she was upset, and you were paraphrasing her. And one of the things that you paraphrased was, in fact, your statement was she was upset that was like her last words to him, correct?
She said that.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Were you also made aware, did she tell you that her last words to him were in voicemails? Did she say that?
She didn't give any details.
Did you ask her, what were your last words to him?
I did not.
Did she ever say whether or not she believed he ever received her last words to him?
There's no other details. There was no other details other than what she said.
Okay. But she did, when she was having this conversation with you about her last words to him, she did actually take out her phone and show you a bunch of missed calls to him at the same time, didn't she?
She tried to, yes.
Okay. In your mind, did you put two and two together that what she was actually talking about were the missed calls and her being upset about her last words to him, being very angry on those missed calls, those voicemails? Did you put those two things together?
I did.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Brennan?
So when Ms. Reed told you that she was sad because her last conversation, her last thing that she had said to him was an argument, did she ever suggest that was in a voicemail?
Objection.
Oh,
Did she ever suggest it was in a voicemail?
She did not.
Did she ever suggest that she didn't actually speak to him, but instead it was some type of message?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Did she ever suggest that?
She did not.
In fact, you wrote a report saying that there was an argument earlier in the night, didn't you?
Objection. No,
Sustained.
You then were interviewed, weren't you? Were you
Yes.
interviewed on February 14th, 2022?
Yes.
And you referred to the fact that she told you there was an argument earlier in the night?
Argument earlier in the night.
And she was telling you this when you were speaking to her that morning?
Correct. around 6 a.m. Yes.
And earlier in the night, you know she was referring to 12:30
I did not know.
or 12:15
No,
or midnight?
I didn't know the time.
So his answer is he doesn't know.
You testified in the grand jury, and Attorney Jackson just asked you some questions about part of the statement you made to the grand jury when he said, like her last words. Would you like to put that in context of the whole statement you made? Do you remember?
Her last words?
Do you remember the entire statement that you made in the grand jury about the statement that was made to you?
I'd have to.
May I approach?
Yes.
This is page 81, lines 1 through 4. Please read it to yourself.
Right here, sir.
1 through 4, please.
Yes.
Now, when you made that statement you were asked about in the grand jury, you didn't just say, like her last words, did you?
No.
You explained your memory to the grand jury?
Objection.
Ask him what he told the grand jury.
Okay. The grand jury, do you know it was on April 21st, 2022?
Yes.
Okay, and did you tell the grand jury? So she
I'm going to see Councilor Cyber for a second, please.
May I approach?
Yes.
So I'm showing you that statement that you made. That includes last words, but there's more to the statement, isn't there?
She was upset.
I'd like you to read
Oh,
your
sorry.
entire
Sure.
statement, 1 through 5. Read it out.
So she was also she was upset also because she said they had, the last time they had talked, she had gotten into an argument. So she was upset that that was like her last words to him.
And so when you were speaking about her last words to him, were you referring to the argument?
Correct.
You testified again regarding this issue, didn't you, in May 3rd, 2024?
Correct.
Okay. And at that point, did you think or believe that the conversation she was relating to you was about a voicemail?
Objection.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Did you use the word again on May 3rd, 2024, argument?
Objection.
I'm going to allow this.
I used argument.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Can I actually read your prior statement on page 10, lines 9 through 13?
Objection.
I'm going to see you at sidebar again and bring these documents. Please bring all of it.
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, when you wrote the report of your notes to put in your report, do you remember the word argument?
I did.
Do you remember her actually saying the word argument?
I did.
Do you remember her ever saying any word about voice messages?
I did not.
You said that there was somebody in the front seat of the car with the defendant,
It was.
and you later learned from the defendant it was a person by the name of Kerry Roberts.
Correct.
Can you share with us the context? How did you learn that?
The defendant and my partner, firefighter Whitley, had a conversation.
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
So the defendant brought up how if her husband had died at the time, she didn't know how she was going to take care of his kids.
Objection.
I'm going to allow this.
And firefighter Whitley mentioned that she had like a strong support system. You know, all the friends are on Canton, and
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes.
When you spoke to the defendant and she shared with you that her last words with her husband were an argument, why didn't you ask for more detail about that?
I didn't feel it was at the time we went about the call as that we didn't think we would be witnesses in a murder trial. We were there to support Karen and ultimately get to the hospital safely.
And you were asked about trauma, and you said that you observed that the person may be in trauma, Ms. Reed.
A traumatic event,
Traumatic event.
Right.
Do you have any idea what caused that traumatic event?
I did not.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything?
Very quickly, you indicated that you were asked on redirect examination by Mr. Brennan whether earlier in the night could have been 12 or 12:15 a.m., correct?
That's what he asked, yes.
And earlier in the night could have been 6:00 p.m.
Early in the night, yeah, correct.
Could have been 5:00 p.m.
Could have been,
Could have been 7:00 p.m.
sure.
Okay. You were also asked whether or not Ms. Reed actually specifically mentioned voicemails when she talked about those last words. And you said she didn't,
That I remember, correct.
but she did show you her phone.
She tried to.
And she did show you a bunch of missed calls to John Keith, correct?
I wasn't gonna look through her phone. I don't know who she called.
Thank you.
When she said about the argument, she said those were the last words, the argument, right?
That's correct.
Sustained.
All right. Jurors disregard that last statement. All right, you are all set.
All right. Thank you. You guys.
Is this a good place to stop for the day?
If the court pleases, yes.
Jurors, we could do 6 minutes, but I think this is probably a good place to start. All right. So, as I understand it, folks, we're on schedule, right where we thought we would be. We're going to release you for today. Now, when I told you this morning, and I've told you other times too, that when you're out in that room waiting for us, we're in here getting work done to make things more efficient for the trial, especially a trial this long. We've decided that we're going to spend Monday afternoon, again, trying to streamline this trial and deal with issues that we have to deal with. So Monday for you will be a half a day. All right, so I just wanted to tell you that before you left today. Please, again, those 3 cautions: do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it, let us know. And I guess the 4th caution is the same as I've been saying. Please be very careful with your social media. All right, have a good weekend. We'll see you Monday morning.
All right, everyone, please.
And I'd like to see counsel at sidebar, please.
I'll be right back.
All right. All right. Looks like the jury's done for the day. So we're done for the day. That's that. Sorry, guys. I had a major call with the school, so I had to take that. But Alan got some good information in relative to the expert on the pathologist. Blood. He tested the blood. Yay. But we did get some great details with that. So we're good to go. This is obviously a very light day. They're getting, I don't know, I don't understand if the jury is out, why they keep running to sidebar. I guess they don't want us, the public, to know what's what. But I'm gonna make sure that the day is over because we kind of sped up. Yeah. See you Monday. Right. So they're on Monday, voir dire. Hopefully they'll get to the experts on that. So tell me what you think. Sorry I haven't been here, but I definitely appreciate those who jumped on live. Good, God bless you all. Have a good day. Enjoy your Friday. Lyric Armstrong here, your real estate agent and advocate.